9/11, 2008, and now 2020. Different types of crises, different types of situations, all of them requiring strong leadership. And that's exactly why I am very happy to have on the show today Angie Simon, the CEO of Western Allied Mechanical out of the Bay Area in California. Hi, this is Eric Anderton. I'm your host of Construction Genius. Angie, in addition to running Western Allied Mechanical with her partners, is also the current president of SMACNA, the Sheet Metal and Air Conditioning Contractors National Association, and she is the host of her own podcast, Let's Talk Shop. So you should check that out in addition to listening to Construction Genius. And the reason I brought Angie on the show is because she has been involved in construction leadership for 20 plus years, and she has been through 9/11, 2008, and now 2020. I wanted to know her perspective on the difference between these different crises that the business world and obviously the nation has gone through, and the world. And I also wanted to talk to her about how she's navigating the current crisis and what she's learning and what they're doing in order to not only survive the current crisis, and thankfully they're doing way more than surviving, but then thrive as we go forward into the future. So we talk about what they're struggling with the most at the moment, how they're balancing empathy and execution as they're running their business, the feelings of isolation that some contractors are experiencing and how folks can handle those, how they're connecting with industry partners, including unions, to navigate these tough times, and how the core culture of Western Allied Mechanical has provided a bedrock that they've been able to lean on in order to get through the current situation. We talk about some of the innovations that they're currently working through that may continue on as they go forward, as well as some of the scenario planning that Angie has been going through as she looks at the situation with a realistic and yet optimistic perspective. I think that's what you'll really draw out of our conversation here today. I appreciate you listening to Construction Genius. Please feel free to give us a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts. That helps us to spread across the interwebs because we want to blow up Construction Genius as much as possible and get it out to as many people as possible. There's some great content on this podcast, as you know, if you're a regular listener, that I think a lot of folks benefit from. So please, if you find benefit in listening to this show, don't be shy. Share it with others. Let's get the word out about the podcast and terrific interviews with leaders like Angie. So enjoy my discussion with her today, and thanks for listening to Construction Genius. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Angie, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me again.
Eric, thank you for having me in this unique time frame right now.
Unique. Let's just cast our mind back. 20 years, we've gone through three major crises, you could say, in our country. We've done 9/11, 2008, and now 2020. Give me some perspective as a business owner of a large subcontractor in the Bay Area. Give me some perspective on how you see the similarities and differences between these three events, even as we're in the midst of the 2020 right now.
Well, Eric, that's interesting. 9/11, I was talking to a couple contractors about that and what we experienced in 9/11. And for construction in 9/11, it was such a traumatic event for the entire United States, and it shut down many things, and our travel particularly. But it didn't really shut down any construction. Maybe people had a nervousness, and there was a lot of fear. There was that apprehension, but it didn't really shut down the construction. We all worried a little bit about the economy and not knowing what was going to happen with it after that. But overall, we made it through that pretty well as a construction group. 2008. We had the feeling as things started, we started bidding less. We started seeing less available to bid. And it started giving us signs that things were happening. Our backlog, a couple of our backlogs started dwindling. And then everything just started drying up. And you could kind of feel that there was a problem happening. Interest rates were going up. That right there to me felt like with construction, though, we did not hit the deep part of the recession for quite a while because of the fact that we had a lot of backlog that we were working our way through.
And that's in 2008.
In 2008, right, right. And we really, in 2000, in 9/11, we really didn't lay off a lot of people. Nothing really changed drastically other than just some, apprehension. In this situation, boy, in the current coronavirus situation, it hit us very, very quickly. I mean, I don't think anybody anticipated the shutdown going to happen so quickly. We in the Bay Area were actually one of the very, very first, just the Bay Area, not California, but the Bay Area, 6 counties on March 16th shut down, and they said all businesses were to shelter in place and all job sites were shut down. And it just boomed. We heard there was going to be a newscast at noon, I should say, and then by 2:00 we were told everything was done. So we got together as a management group and figured out what we were going to start working on, and we slowly got job sites back up on board. But
after that announcement, what was the tenor? What was the feel in that first management meeting? As you went into the room, you're the CEO of your company. You looked at the players in the room. What was the sense there?
Well, interestingly, we had heard that this newscast was coming. So I emailed all my partners or messaged them, and we all watched it from our different desks and listened to what the mayor said, the mayor of San Francisco and then the mayor of San Jose. And then we met out in the back of our yard in a big circle. So we did not, because we wanted the younger partners and we wanted all of the ownership to be there. And we didn't really want to meet inside because we really didn't have anywhere close that we could be far enough away. So we stood out in the back of our yard and we had about a 20-minute conversation about what we just heard and what it meant to us and what we were going to do. Pretty tactical right off the bat. We've gone to the cloud and mostly. So we were able to just basically say we need to have everybody take those that have really powerful computers, we don't have laptops for them. We told them, just take your computers, take your monitors, and we want you to work from home. People we could get laptops too. If we had extra laptops, we gave them to them. But we were very tactical on that. We called our superintendents and they called our foremen and basically said, don't come to the job sites tomorrow. We had a rig set up the next day, so we canceled that. We were just dealing with the immediate right then and there. And then we did actually at that time felt like we were probably an essential service with the service department. But again, we basically told our service techs, you're taking tomorrow off until we get a chance to really understand what fully is going on.
So tell me, Angie, in that first meeting, I know one of the things that I find interesting about your business is that here you are with this major crisis hitting, just as you're going a transition in your business between the older generation and the new partners, like you mentioned. Did you notice anything in that first meeting about the new folks perhaps versus the old folks, or was it all one team? What did you see there?
I saw one thing. I felt like the younger group was very happy. Every meeting we have online, every Teams meeting we have, it's not just a senior partnership, it's the whole partnership, and they have some great ideas. This is actually a really good experience for my young partners because they're learning about how do you mix taking care of the business as well as taking care of your employees. And this is a tough time to figure that out right now.
As you're going through this current crisis here, we're recording this in April, so by the time it gets out in May, it'll, who knows what'll happen exactly. But what is it that you guys are finding that you're struggling with the most in your business?
Well, there's tactical stuff like finding enough N95 masks and having enough hand sanitizer, which we've become creative and made some of our own, etc. There's that, which I think everybody's struggling with. It also is, it's hard for me. We have maybe probably 250, 280 total employees, depending on it. And a lot of those 70 or so are office folks that we have now working at home. And they are actually working still. We have everybody being pretty productive and we're covering our office folks' salaries. But it really hurts me and our business to see our field personnel going out home and being on furlough or unemployment because I know they don't want to be. And I know it's tough. And the Bay Area is so expensive. So it's hard for me to see them do that. But it's also that mix of keeping them safe as well.
How are you balancing that? We know in construction, safety is so vital, and yet this whole situation is adding an additional layer of safety, which seems to some people unnecessary. To other people, they don't even want to go to the job site. How are you negotiating that additional layer of safety in terms of the communication of it to your folks and the enforcing and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I'll tell you one thing right now. We can't over communicate right now. I mean, everybody wants to hear stuff. Everybody's a little scared and isolated, so we can't over communicate. We've had a couple all hands type all hands meetings, brought everybody on board with that. But we right off the bat went and wrote up a protocol, a very detailed protocol about what happens on job site, where if you have to work within 6 feet of each other, what you have to do there. probably a whole bunch of P100 respirators so that if they do have to work next to each other, they can actually wear a respirator and a full-on goggles that are sealed. There is that fine line of the mix of how do you stress what they need to do without getting them too scared. And then on top of that, we've made all work voluntary. I mean, any field personnel who does not want to work because of whether they have somebody at home that's immunocompromised and they're nervous about bringing something back, that have every right to stay home, and we've told them that. We are doing everything we can. We certainly have done above and beyond, giving them all the things that they need, and we would never ask them to go to do anything that they don't feel comfortable with. Now, there are things at times are out of our control. The general contractor, their protocols are put in place, but are they following them? And they may be following them, but the drywaller may not be, or they'll pick on the ceiling guy or whatever. They may not be following the protocols either. So we've given them the right to immediately pull off a job site and call us, and we'll head out and find out what's going on.
Before we turned on the interview, we were chatting, and you were talking about a recent conversation you had with some SMACNA executives regarding feelings of isolation that people may be experiencing at the moment. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and what you guys were talking about?
Yeah, well, I'm the president of National SMACNA, and SMACNA is a sheet metal contract association. But we have a board for SMACNA, which is of members from across the United States and Canada. And there's about 25 people on the board. 25 people, because there's 2 ladies on the board, so that's awesome, not just one. Or 3 ladies on the board, I should say. I had been speaking with or emailing with a couple of them individually, and realized that they kind of were looking for, could we get together? So we set up a Teams meeting this morning and on video, and we had about 25 people on there. And, we went around and asked everybody what was going on in their different areas. I mean, we got a chance to hear what was happening in Detroit and in Boston and Chicago and, in Albuquerque and Ontario, Canada. And it was really neat. I think everybody really appreciated being able to talk and share ideas, but also share the stresses that we're all experiencing as well. And I asked him, do you want to do this again? And overall, it was absolutely, we want to do this in 2 weeks. Can we talk again? But of all the sadness that was involved, the fact that people have people sitting home and the concerns, everybody across the board said they were bidding a lot of stuff. So there was a lot of bidding going on. So I think it feels to me like there's still a lot of hope that things are going to come out really well, because the owners and the clients are still wanting their projects bid, and they want to get ready to start again as soon as we get released to start again.
Do you think that's a function of the interest rates?
Yeah, I would believe that the interest rates help a lot on that. I would believe that we were in a boom. I mean, last year was our biggest year ever. And so that boom is hard to shut down. I mean, there's a lot of buildings that people want to still build and move in. I do, you worry about I imagine, like, if you were building a restaurant, that restaurant might have some concerns about building because of the fact that all the restaurants are shut down. But we will get past this. And I think everybody has that hope and plans on it. But I certainly see our developers still being ready to go. And we are primarily biotech, a lot of biotech and life sciences, which is really going to be even booming more after this, trying to find vaccines for that virus.
So with that in mind, what if any strategic discussions have you had as a leadership group in your organization in terms of directions that you might be taking when we come out of this? What have you guys thought of pointing the ship in different directions? What are you thinking there?
Well, we're using this opportunity right now, being sheltered at home, and also being maybe starting to lighten up a little. I mean, particularly project managers, et cetera, are going to start to lighten up because our jobs are now shut down. So we're using this to really, really focus on where we want to go with training, but also we're doing things that we didn't have time to do. We're doing post-mortems on all the jobs, the recent jobs that have closed. We're finding out where on those jobs did we match our estimate, where did we exceed our estimate, where did we overdo our estimate, so that we can tighten things up. I'm asking them to do that. I'm asking them all. We're going to be the most OSHA 30 trained group, because we're doing a lot of OSHA 30 training online right now. We're looking at that direction. We're trying to do everything we can to be prepped to come out of this with our tennis shoes on and running, because we feel like the backlog we have is bigger than we've ever had. So we have this confidence we're going to come out of it. But we also have found that we can be very effective remotely. And so it may change how we operate in the future.
So tell me about, I know some people, they struggle working remotely. They just don't feel comfortable. They get unproductive. They've obviously got kids running around all over the place, some of them. What have you found to be successful in terms of your folks working remotely?
Well, one of the positives for us is we have been trying to go paperless. And in some areas, divisions, we've been doing a great job. In some areas, we maybe haven't. Our accounting folks are the first to comment that they didn't want to go paperless. They didn't want to go paperless. They like paper. They're in accounting. So now they're having to go paperless, and they're realizing that it's not as bad as they thought. So it's driving us to do some of that paperless type work that we were saying. Now that allows us to be able to be remote if we need to. But I think we're also finding out that there definitely are some people that are not going to be able to do that well. And they're learning that themselves. I mean, they're being forced to work remote now, and they're realizing they're not as productive. But it also means it's because all the kids are home, and that's really complicates life. I luckily have college age and out of that age kids, so I don't have that problem at my house.
Yeah, I just had to kick all my kids off of the Fortnite here at my house before we recorded this podcast.
Well, we don't have many people at the office. We have our operations guy and a couple of receiving people, but every once in a while, my partner, who's our president, who has 4 boys under the age of 13, he'll show up at the office for 3 or 4 hours because he's not getting a whole lot done at home.
Well, how has your communication rhythm with your partners and their senior executives, how has that changed as you've gone through the crisis in comparison to what it was like before?
Interesting. I think we're speaking together a lot more, which we should be in a crisis like this, particularly because, and we're all taking different roles and we're all adapting to those roles pretty well. I have one of my partners one of my partners and a young partner super involved in safety. And he has been so focused on the safety side of it, what we're going to do, helping put our protocols together. I've been very focused on payroll protection plan, how to get us through all the paperwork side of that. We've got other ones that have been working on the paid sick leave plan. I mean, everybody's been taking kind of a different address and which way should we go? What should we look at? And I think we've been actually speaking probably twice a week, 3 times a week on a Zoom thing. And we actually talk to each other more, I think. Because we're in 2 or 3 buildings and we wouldn't see each other and we all have different schedules, we probably see each other once a month in our normal meetings. And I think we're seeing each other more now.
So how do you think your core culture has played a role in navigating through the crisis so far?
I think it's played a big role. We recently asked our young partners to go and basically to reevaluate our core culture and come up with our new DNA, we call it. And we wanted the young ones to do that because it's really their company in the future. And they came through with 3 very big bullet point DNAs, and one of them was driven by innovation. So we're proud to say that we were able to go remote and not have a problem with it. Dedicated to teamwork, and grounded in care. And the grounded in care is part of what really helps drive us to the point where we say we're going to pay all of our office folks to stay at home. I put an email out the other day, Zach put an email out the other day that said, if you're light on work, let us know, let your supervisor know, because there might be other departments that you can help. There's some training we can give you. We'll find something for you to help us with, write up an SOP, help us in different areas. And so everybody's been very communicative about that. And we really do care about our people. And I'm excited about this stimulus plan because as soon as we can get that loan that we applied for, we're planning on bringing our field people back, even if they have to just sit at home. But we're going to plan on paying them as much as we can, at least 32 hours of their salary if we can, so that we can take care of our people, because the grounded in care is very important to us.
So that's interesting because you are a union contractor. And so one of my clients is a union contractor, different industry, and their jobs got shut down, and so they're in danger of their guys getting taken by another union contractor because their guys have got to work. So how are you navigating and handling that? That's kind of a challenge, isn't it?
But there's nobody in the Bay Area really working much right now. I mean, there really is very few jobs going, and I think our guys know that we're doing the best we can. One of my hopes is if we get the stimulus money, then we can pay them to stay at home, and when we're ready to work, we will be excited to have them back, and hopefully they'll be very excited to come back too. I do know that in our all hands meeting, there was a lot of appreciative people, even the field guys who are on furlough and not working, but the fact that it's all important about safety, and we really do care about their safety. So that's been very important to us. So
how are you balancing the idea of needing to show empathy to the folks that are working for you, and obviously being hyper concerned about the safety is fundamental? How are you balancing that with still the need for execution and the need for, being productive?
Yeah, that's a challenge. I don't think I have any problem with empathy in regards to their situation, period. I mean, we all are scared, and we all don't know what this virus is. And nobody really knows what's going to happen tomorrow or the next day. And nobody knows when we're going to be back to work. So we all share in that same feeling. So it is for us very important that they're safe if they do work for us on a job site. In the few job sites we have going, they generals need to do what they say. But I, as the CEO of the company, also have to take a look at what happens in May 3rd if we don't come back to work. What happens May in June 1st, if we're still not working on job sites? What happens July 1st if we're still not working on job sites? I've got to put plans together for that too. So, but however, I think if you do that with empathy and care, and you do what you can, we'll be willing to, not make as much money, but we want to take care of our people, but we do have to keep the company going. And I think our people know that as well. So we certainly will start with the owners taking the cut first. And that's the way that's the plan for phase one, which is May 1st. If things don't get different, then the owners are taking their cuts first. Hopefully we won't have to worry about that. We have so much work coming up. Our engineering department's buried. Our detailers are buried. They're almost done with all these. We have so many projects ready to go. I'm a little bit worried about having enough people to man them when they do start again.
Let's explore that a little bit as far as the scenario planning. What kind of a structure or framework have you used that you found to be helpful in terms of, drawing those lines in the sand that are based on those dates of May, June, and July?
We did it without assuming the stimulus package first, because that is like manna from heaven right there. But first we figured if that didn't happen, we looked at overhead and said, how much overhead do we need to cut if we're bringing in X amount of revenue? And it's really just kind of a math problem in that if your revenue is at this, what is your break-even point? And you've got to figure out what you've got to cut. We also then had to do it again to say, okay, but now we have the stimulus package that is saying, hey, we're going to give you 8 weeks of payroll, help you with 8 weeks of payroll. So that's going to make a bit of an adjustment. We want to get the money to make sure it's all good. It's hard to believe. So we want to have it in our hand, and then at that point, we'll figure it out. I hope that allows us to get through a lot. One of the biggest things that package will do for us is cash flow. Right now, we're fine. We had good collections. We've been ahead in cash, but when it all starts to ramp back up, that's when cash will be tight for all contractors, I think, once we get really busy again, and we've had to drain our cash to deal with this last couple of months.
Yes, that's interesting. So just when things get going again, that may be even when a special dose of pain comes your way, huh?
Yeah, but that's why that stimulus package is huge, because if I can get that stimulus loan, now I'm going to be able to handle the flow of the cash that we need.
What decisions have you been forced to make during the crisis that you are sort of saying, that's interesting. I think that shows promise for what we might be doing in the future after we come out of the crisis?
Well, the paperless decision is one of them for sure. That is something that we're going to look at and make sure that we do in the future. We actually, in the next few years, will be looking to possibly move and get a larger shop across into the East Bay. Maybe we won't have as many permanent cubes in the offices. People can be a little more transit, because the traffic right now is no problem, but when we get back full bore again, the traffic is a challenge. And so allowing people to work from home a couple of days a week is not a bad thing. I think we can find that the biggest issue for an owner is, can you trust your employees? We do. We feel like we can, and most of our employees do a great job with that, and we're seeing production from them. So that's one of those changes, that something that we may allow more people to work from home or to have more flexible schedules might help, and actually maybe continue to make it a better place to work.
What have you been doing in terms of the way you're interacting with your clients to support them, or to let them know that you're here and all those kinds of things? How have you guys been working on that?
A variety of different ways with different clients. Depends on the client. I've had one general contractor, a real good client of mine, who actually has set up phone calls with all of his major subs just to talk through where, for example, what their thoughts were at the time was, are our jobs essential? Are we going to remand them? What concerns do you have? And there was a lot of discussion, and I thought that was pretty good. But we have just been touching base with them. A lot of them were, for example, we have a good sized project with DPR, and it was shut down from the beginning and hasn't started back up again. And I've been interested to see how their DPR is dealing with all that. We need to get hold of some more of our clients. I have been a little buried in making sure we get the business side of things going, but it is about that time to start touching base with clients. They do know that we're there if they need to. There is some COVID-19 work that is available that we've been looking at, and they've been calling us on.
What good do you think is coming out of this crisis that's going to knock on and carry forward into the next business cycle?
From the world's point of view, I think people care about each other more. I mean, people seem to be a little mellower. I think people appreciate teachers a lot more too. In regards to the business side of things, I do think it's showing, really, really re-emphasizing with all of our employees what our culture is and how much we do care about them. that we need to adapt to the future. Don't be afraid of change, because if you're willing to change and you're willing to adapt, you can always make things work. And we're all in this together. I've been really, really impressed with our union stance on a lot of things as well. Our sheet metal union here in the Bay Area voluntarily said we could work 2 shifts. We could do shift work and at straight time, just to allow us to have less people at the job at the same time. And I thought that was very innovative of them. And I shared that across the nation with other sheet metal contractors and challenging other locals to do the same thing. And so, that's where in this time, you're hoping your partners all step up and work together on.
That's interesting. I was going to ask you that. How are you connecting with industry partners and even competition in this circumstance? Obviously, that's a great thing about the unions there. It's great to see them being flexible. Any contact with your industry partners, or with your competition even?
You know what? We're all in this together. And I think our competition, we have been doing, there's been some chat forums that have been going back and forth locally that having with our competition that, hey, how are you dealing with this? Where are you finding masks? And people are sharing ideas. I think there's a little bit of that isolation thing. Everybody wants to talk about it and share ideas. I've been very busy across the nation communicating with other contractors and sharing ideas and actually getting ideas from them as well. So everybody comes up with another unique idea. I mean, for example, my contractor peer group in Washington shared an idea. They're making sinks, portable sinks on Rubbermaid carts that they build a sink with 2 sides and they have a hot underneath. They put a hot water, little Insta-Hot heater and for washing hands, and they can have them on every floor. One of my other contractors mentioned that if you have a water jet, you could cut the face masks that the doctors use, and they're making face masks for doctors. Sharing ideas, we're all in this together. In the Bay Area right now, there's a lot of work out here. So the good part is there's enough for all of us when it all comes back. And right now, we're all just trying to get past this.
So it's interesting because you mentioned about how your culture is being affirmed in a practical way with your employees. And I just thought about how employees so appreciate when it's not just a slogan, but they actually see it in a practical situation. And that can really help to cement your relationship with those employees for the long term.
Well, and that's how we look at our employees. I mean, we look at our employees as long term. I've been at my same company for 33 years. All the young partners have been there 10, 15, 20 years. It is a place that we hope that they will be there for the long haul. And dedicated teamwork was one of our DNAs, and our group works together. And that was my whole point, is if you're light on work, go see somebody else or contact somebody else so they can help. We've even got 2 new hires coming in July that are in their last quarter of school. And of course, there's not a lot of school. And those new hires have volunteered they asked, could they do OSHA 30 training online for free? But we pay for the OSHA training. They wanted to do Procore training. One of them even said, hey, can I do takeoff? If you need extra takeoff, I'll do it for free. I'm just bored at school. So I thought that was pretty good.
It's interesting how you can really tell something about a person in the way that they respond to a crisis.
That's true. It's important to me that people understand that if you respond and say, I don't want to come into work, it's because you're worried about your family. That shows how much you care about your family. It has nothing. That's the thing we're trying to stress to everybody is if you don't want to work on the job site right now, you don't have to, because if it's something within your family you want to take care of, then you please do that. But I do have other people saying, please let me go because I have too many people at the house.
When I think about that, it's more in terms of, some people are, they either get the deer in the headlights look or they just kind of shut down. And so it's nothing to do with this idea of, hey, if you got to stay at home, stay at home. But it's more this idea of, hey, I'm willing to do whatever, I'm here to help. Let me learn whatever I can, because, this is a great opportunity for me to maybe step into new roles or new pieces of knowledge that I haven't been exposed to yet.
Absolutely. I've always pointed out to my employees that the more versatile you can be, the more valuable you are as well. So the more you can learn about other departments. And we have actually a number of project managers who they were in our engineering department for a number of years. And while their jobs are light on work, they've jumped back into engineering and they're helping to engineer some jobs that we have.
What have you learned about yourself during this crisis?
That's a good question. I have learned that I appreciate lawyers more than I used to, because these documents we got from the state are just overwhelming. And the lawyers, a couple of our lawyer friends from SmackDown have really helped me understand those documents. And if it takes, they're complicated. But I've also learned I don't panic. I look at this and I'm probably a little more Pollyanna. I'm hoping we're making a plan, and I'm hoping and I'm counting on the plan. And I'm thinking that May 3rd, that we might be allowed to go back on some of our job sites. And we may be working from home for the next couple months, but we'd be allowed to go back on our job sites, and that would be great. And I've learned to myself that I'm not too nervous about things. I just get it done, whatever it needs to be done, get it done. But I also am kind of the one who walks around and says, we're going to be fine with this, guys. Let's be positive.
That's good. It's good to have that positive attitude, but at the same time to do the scenario planning and be realistic as well. Just a quick question. Any great shows have you seen as you've been at home? Maybe you've gotten a little more downtime. Anything that you've done that you usually wouldn't do that you've enjoyed? I mean, I know you love baseball, so the baseball's been off. So I know what I like to do is like go back on YouTube and watch the Giants winning in 2014.
We've watched all those. Don't worry. I've watched more shows than I had in the past, but my household right now, it's my husband, my son, my older son and myself, and my older son's a sports journalist, and so he's not very busy either. We've watched the old Giants games. We've watched the old Niner games. We've watched every episode of Peyton's Place. I don't know if you've seen that. Yeah, so Peyton's Place is Peyton Manning.
Oh.
He does a series on the 100-year anniversary of football, and he's very entertaining. It's on ESPN. I think you have to have the ESPN app, but they recently played it on ESPN too. But they were very enjoyable. I mean, just the history of football and very entertaining. And we watched Disney movies last night. I mean, my husband and I watched old Disney movies, so it was kind of fun.
That's cool.
Yeah, anything to lighten the mood a little bit.
Me and my older boys, we watched the Dark Knight trilogy, the Batman trilogy. I'm going to introduce them to the Matrix tonight, so that'll be interesting.
Ooh. Oh, there you go. Well, we have been avoiding the news a little bit. I mean, I watch enough of it in the morning that in the evening it's hard to watch the news again. So we're trying to keep positive on that end, so we don't, and trying not to drink too much at night.
Yeah.
Easy to do as well.
I think that's interesting though, because a lot of the problem with this situation, I think this is key for people to understand, is there's so many unknowns still, that the news can bounce around so much, and and they're paid. The news is paid to make things as dark as possible so that people will pay attention. But at the same time, obviously, there are situations that are really dark and difficult. So I think if you get over too much news, it can be overwhelming and distracting. And so you have to pick and choose there, don't you think?
I do. I totally do. And I, particularly if I had younger kids in the house as well. But, and I will say, I've gone through my ups and downs. I'm president of National SMACNA this year. And my role this year, besides my role at Western Ally, which I was ramping down anyways, was supposed to be traveling and seeing all of our contractors. And I kind of wanted to make an impact on them, being the first woman president and everything. And then basically in March, April, May, June, July travels were slammed to a stop. So I went through points of being a little depressed about that. I'm feeling bad. It is a bummer, but being able to still help contractors, and like today's call with all our board, but talking to everybody was really good. So, those are the kind of things you got to deal with. And instead I did I run a podcast for National SMACNA called Let's Talk Shop. And we did one on COVID-19. And I talked to an Indiana and a Seattle person about what they were doing about COVID-19 in those areas. But
that's great.
And just reaching out to other contractors and time to share ideas and you just share and sympathize with each other. It's helpful because you don't feel alone that way.
Let me just make a note of that. Podcast is Let's Talk Shop, and it's through National SMACNA, right?
Right. It's on iTunes and SoundCloud if somebody wanted to listen to it. It's kind of fun. I think it's episode maybe 11. We've done a whole bunch. It's basically contractors talking to contractors. So,
man, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I'll put a link in the show notes to that. So you got to check out and subscribe to Let's Talk Shop.
It's been fun. I will say our SMACNA has done a great job during this crisis to help all of our contractors with as much knowledge and information on all this, that what's happening. Even wrote up a protocol for everybody safety-wise and everything else. So it like you said, we're all competitors, but we're really just rivals, not really competitors. I look at us as we're rivals, and we work together to make the best product possible, and then we should be helping each other right now.
Excellent. Well, Angie, I really appreciate you coming on the show here today. Anything you'd like to add as we wrap up here?
I'm going to go with that Pollyanna thing of this is going to change our world. We may not be shaking hands for another 6 months or ever, but I am a hugger, so I'm hoping someday I can come back and give hugs. But you know what? It's okay, because if anything, it's helped us all reconnect with our families and understand that things can slow down a little bit if we need it to. And when we come back to work and everything comes back to normal, let's see if we can still remember some of the quiet times we've had.
There you go. That's awesome. Well, Angie, I really appreciate you joining me today. Thanks very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Eric. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes. Share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit. And always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity. And to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.